Hey guys, tonight we're going to drift back through the foggy corridors of time to an era where the streets smelled faintly of wood smoke and horse sweat, where music wasn't something you played from a glowing rectangle, but something that drifted from a lonely minstrel's lute in the courtyard. You'll walk under banners fluttering from high stone towers past markets selling salted fish and strange herbs, all in search of something far trickier to buy than bread or wool love. And in this world, you probably won't survive this, not because the dating scene is dangerous, although, well, it is, but because daily life here is a delicate dance with hunger disease and an entire social system stacked like a creaky ladder above your head. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from right now, and what time is it there? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step out of your timber-framed home, if you're lucky enough to have one, and into the crisp air of a medieval morning. The cobblestones are slick with last night's rain, and somewhere in the distance, the bell from the church tower tolls a slow, resonant note. That bell measures not just the hour, but the rhythm of life itself. Everything you do, from work to worship to the possibility of courtship, is anchored to it. And in this moment, you aren't simply alive in the Middle Ages, you're of it. But love here is complicated. Marriage for most isn't just about two people falling head over heels in candlelit corridors. It's an alliance, a contract, a delicate negotiation between families and sometimes even kingdoms. Your own feelings, they're a small but not insignificant part of the equation. And so dating, though we'd never call it that in your time, is more about positioning yourself than swiping right. If you are of noble birth, the entire matter is a formal affair. Your parents have likely had conversations, perhaps over wine in the Great Hall, with other families about suitable matches. They consider land titles and whether or not your bloodline is sufficiently pure in the tangled web of local nobility. You may have met the intended partner only once or twice, perhaps at a feast, or during a hunt, your words limited to polite exchanges in front of others. Affection might come later or not at all. If, however, you belong to the merchant class or peasantry, things take a slightly different path. Here, love might still be an economic arrangement, but the choice is marginally more yours. You may meet someone at a festival, the great fairs that draw people from surrounding villages where music, ale, and dancing turn strangers into potential partners. But even here, you must tread carefully. Courtship has rules. Too much attention too soon could brand you as improper. Too little, and you'll be forgotten before the candles burn out. You walk past the market square, where a man selling ribbons catches your eye. In your time, ribbons are not just pretty things, they can be tokens. If someone were to gift you one worn on your sleeve or in your hair, it might be read as a quiet but clear sign of interest. And in this way, small gestures, a flower slipped into a palm, a loaf of bread gifted without asking for payment, carry as much weight as a public proposal. The church, of course, hovers over every interaction. It dictates not only who you may marry, but when and how. Certain days of the year are considered unlucky for weddings. Certain unions forbidden altogether. Marrying within a close degree of kinship, even distant cousins, can be declared invalid unless a bishop grants special dispensation. And so many a young romance has been quietly strangled in the cradle by a cleric with a firm grasp of canon law. Still, human nature does what it has always done. It finds a way. There are dances in the village green, especially on feast days, where hands brush just a moment too long during a turn. There are harvest gatherings where you may slip away behind the barns for a stolen conversation. And there are the wandering seasons when fairs and pilgrimages bring strangers into your life for a brief, dazzling week before they vanish down the road forever. If you are bold, you might try the language of courtly love, a style of romantic expression that idealizes the beloved as almost unattainable, placing them on a pedestal to be served, admired, and longed for. This fashion is particularly popular among the nobility, where troubadours compose verses praising a lady's beauty or a knight's chivalry. You might send a poem yourself, though, unless you are skilled with words. You'd better enlist help from someone who is for a poorly written verse could doom your chances faster than silence. And while we think of dating today as private, a dinner for two, a long walk here in your medieval world, very little is ever truly private. Families, friends, and neighbors take note of your every interaction. A glance held too long in the wrong place might set tongues wagging, and gossip here is not just idle chatter. It can shape your future. A bad reputation, deserved or not, may follow you for years, making each step toward a match that much heavier. So you move carefully, speaking in the language of hints and symbols. A favor given before a tournament. A shared cup of spiced wine. An extra verse added to a song when you pass each other in the market. These are your dating apps, your love letters, your text me later moments. And all of them are seen, weighed, and remembered by those around you. And yet for all the watchfulness, all the rules, all the layers of church and family, there are moments when your heart runs ahead of your reason. Perhaps you lock eyes with someone during Mass, the candlelight dancing in the space between you. Perhaps they smile faint and quick before turning away. And you know, even if nothing is ever spoken, that you will be watching for them in the days to come. You keep walking, the smell of baking bread following you down the lane, past the blacksmith's rhythmic hammering and the chatter of washerwomen by the stream. Somewhere in the weave of this daily life, you know your story will continue. And in a world where love is as fragile as it is persistent, each small step forward feels like a quiet victory. The day moves forward, as it always does, pulled by the slow turning of the sun across the medieval sky. You pass the same buildings you see every day, the tavern with its creaking signboard, the stone bridge with moss pushing through its cracks, but your mind is elsewhere. That quiet spark from the other morning lingers, the small recognition that in a world bound by duty and necessity, there might still be room for something softer. But romance here is never simply yours to claim. It's something to be earned, negotiated, and proven not just to the one who holds your heart, but to the entire structure of society around you. Even your clothing plays a role. Bright colors, fine fabrics, or a bit of jewelry could send signals that you have resources, that you are worth the investment of someone's attention. A merchant's daughter in a rich blue gown might draw every eye in the market. A young man with a finely worked belt might be quietly advertising his worth as a suitor. Every stitch tells a story, and every story will be weighed by others before your own voice is ever heard. The village green is busy today. A group of children run past, chasing each other with sticks, their laughter carrying above the low hum of merchants calling out prices. And there you see it again, the art of medieval courtship playing out in plain sight. A young man, cheeks a little too red for the weather, passes a basket of fresh pears to a girl standing by her mother. She glances at her mother first, a necessary step, and then accepts with a small nod. In your own time, it might seem barely worth noting. Here, it is a declaration. If you were to ask someone how to begin courting in this age, they'd tell you it starts with propriety. You don't simply speak to someone of the opposite sex without a good reason, unless you're both at a public gathering where interaction is expected. You find excuses to be in the same place at a feast, a Saints' Day celebration, or the Harvest Festival. Your conversations are never private in the early days. There are chaperones, parents, older siblings, family friends who will stand just close enough to hear. But this doesn't stop people from finding ways to speak in subtler languages. A hand brushing against another during the passing of a goblet. A scarf accidentally left behind after a gathering. A certain song requested from the musicians that only the two of you understand. These are the cracks in the wall where courtship lives quiet and quick. And then there's the fair, the medieval equivalent of a carnival market and music festival all in one. If you are fortunate, you'll find yourself there when people from far beyond your village arrive. Minstrels wander through with fiddles and drums. Traders hawk spices, glass beads, and trinkets you've never seen before. A man juggles apples in the square, children clapping in time. This is a place where the rules of everyday life loosen just enough for possibility. If you are bold, you might walk side by side with someone you're drawn to talking beneath the din of the crowd. Sometimes the first step towards something deeper is not taken by you at all, but by your families. For the noble and wealthy matches may be spoken of long before you are ready, and sometimes before you even meet. Two fathers might stand in the corner of a hall, tankards in hand, speaking of dowries and titles. You meanwhile might be sitting by the fire, speaking politely to the person they've already chosen for you, knowing that your own opinion carries little weight. But for the peasantry, while family approval still matters, the choice often rests more with you so long as your partner can pull their weight in the hard work of life. A man with a strong back and a good field, a woman skilled in brewing or weaving, these are as valuable in marriage as beauty or charm. Romance is woven with practicality because here survival is always the first priority. Courtship itself can last months, even years. You must be seen together often enough that others understand your intent, but not so often as to draw scandal. The church will eventually need to approve your union. Bans the public announcement of your intent to marry must be read aloud 3 times in the parish church before the wedding can take place. This is to allow anyone to raise objections. Perhaps the two of you are related by blood closer than allowed, or perhaps one of you has a prior betrothal. Even if no one speaks up, the process is a public reminder that your love is not yours alone. The social calendar shapes your chances. Lent, for example, is not a time for weddings or excessive celebration. Certain feast days, however, are considered auspicious. St. Valentine's Day, centuries before it became a commercial holiday, was already whispered about as a day for love. May Day, too, with its flowers and dances, is practically made for courtship. You might spend such a day weaving a garland to place on the head of the one you admire, each bloom carrying a meaning known to those who pay attention. Still, it is not all gentle smiles and sweet symbols. Jealousy exists here as much as in any age. A rival might spread a quiet rumor to damage your standing. A family might suddenly withdraw their approval if a better match presents itself. A stolen glance with someone else could be interpreted as betrayal. In a small community, nothing goes unseen for long. Yet you persist. Because even here in this world, so tightly bound by duty, the pull toward companionship is too strong to ignore. And in those rare stolen moments, a dance that lingers past, the final note, a whispered joke in the shadow of the market stalls, you catch a glimpse of something beyond the rigid lines of expectation. You see the possibility of a shared life, not just a shared duty. The day wears on. A troupe of musicians arrives in the square, their songs carrying above the murmur of the crowd. Couples begin to dance the rhythm, simple but infectious. You watch as hands meet eyes, catch, and laughter spills into the cooling air. Somewhere in that shifting crowd, you spot them, the one who has been lingering in your thoughts. And just for a moment, the rest of the world blurs away. You don't step forward yet. That will come. For now, you simply let the music wash over you, the slow turn of the medieval wheel of life, carrying you toward whatever comes next. Because here, love moves at the pace of the seasons, and your story is only just beginning. The music lingers in your ears long after the musicians have packed away their instruments and vanished into the night. You find yourself walking home beneath a sky thick with stars, the air cool and damp with the promise of morning dew. The road is quiet save for the distant bark of a dog and the slow creak of cartwheels somewhere in the darkness. It's here in the hush between the bustle of the day and the chores of the morning that you feel the ache of possibility most sharply. But this is not an age of casual encounters. The next step in courtship isn't a question of simply asking someone out for dinner. Here, every movement toward intimacy must be wrapped in layers of ritual timing and often permission. It is an era where the wrong gesture at the wrong moment can leave you with more than a bruised ego. It can close doors forever. You begin to think about the paths ahead. In the most formal of matches, especially among the upper classes, you might expect an exchange of written words. Letters in your world are rare and precious, often carried by hand or trusted messenger, written on parchment and sealed with wax. And because literacy is far from universal, such letters may be penned not by you, but by a scribe who knows how to capture the correct tone. This makes love letters in the Middle Ages a curious blend of deeply personal sentiment and publicly acknowledged intent. Your words are your own, yet shaped by another's hand. For those without the means or skills to send such letters, there are spoken messages carried through trusted friends. These go-betweens are careful. They cannot be seen to overstep, but they can pass along a comment, a question, even arrange a shared moment during a village gathering. In this way, a single line, "She smiled when she saw you today," can feel like an entire poem. It is also in these early stages that tokens take on heightened importance. A strip of fabric worn during a tournament, a carved wooden charm, or a sprig of rosemary passed from hand to hand. Each has meaning. These are small, tangible proofs of attention, and in a time when public displays are carefully measured, they can mean more than any kiss. You begin to understand that medieval romance often lives in the spaces between what is said and what is meant. A question about the weather might really be an invitation to linger. A casual remark about the next saint's feast might carry a hope that you'll attend together. To be in love here is to become fluent in implication. As the days pass, you start to notice how others navigate their own courtships. There's the miller's son, who makes a point of delivering flour to the weaver's daughter himself, though his father could easily send a servant. There's the brewer's apprentice, who accidentally leaves a flask of her best ale at the smithy every Friday, timed so that she arrives just as the smith's nephew is working the forge. These are not accidents. These are carefully orchestrated moves in a long, slow dance. But the dance does not belong only to the young. Widows and widowers, too, must sometimes re-enter the arena of companionship. For them, courtship is both simpler and more complex. Simpler because their ability to manage a household and survive life's trials is already proven. More complex because their reputations are well known and their choices weighed against prior commitments. A remarriage may be sought for companionship, for the blending of households, or to secure care in old age and love if it comes, is an added blessing. You think about how in your own world, love often begins with the individual. Here it is always entangled with the collective. You are not just choosing a partner. You are choosing an alliance of families, a weaving together of resources, land, and labor. And this is true no matter your station. Even the humblest farmer weighs whether a potential spouse can manage a field, tend animals, and weather the long winters without complaint. The church continues to watch, though often from a respectful distance, until the courtship becomes formal. Priests preach the virtues of chastity before marriage, warning against the dangers of temptation. Yet they also recognize the need for partnership, and so in some places there are informal gatherings sanctioned by the parish dances in the churchyard, after Vespers, for example, or fairs held on feast days. These are as much about building community as they are about finding a match, but in their looseness opportunities arise. And then there are the festivals. Candlemas in the winter, when light returns to the world. Easter, when flowers begin to bloom, and the air carries a promise of warmth. Midsummer, when fires blaze through the shortest night and people leap across them for luck. Each of these days offers its own rituals and customs that lovers can bend toward their own ends. A wreath placed on someone's head at midsummer is no small thing. It may be remembered for years. You begin to picture yourself at such a festival, the air heavy with the scent of crushed grass and wood smoke. Perhaps you walk through the crowd, searching for that one face among the lanterns. Perhaps you see them before they see you, their head bent toward a friend, laughter caught in the orange light. And when your eyes meet, there's that quick, unmistakable shift in the air, the silent acknowledgement that in a sea of people they are the one you were hoping to find. But you don't rush forward. Not here, not now. Instead, you let the festival carry you both along, weaving in and out of sight, trusting that there will be a moment, maybe when the music slows, or when the fires burn low for you to speak. Patience, you remind yourself, is as much a part of courtship as courage. It's worth noting that not all unions here are the product of long, gentle dances. Some are arranged quickly, often for political or economic reasons, with the couple meeting only days before their wedding. In rare cases, love may come after marriage, growing from shared work and mutual respect. In others, it never truly blooms, and the two simply live alongside each other, partners in name and necessity. But in either case, the bond is expected to endure. Divorce is almost unheard of, and separation carries heavy consequences. As the evening deepens, you imagine the road ahead. There will be more gatherings, more opportunities for shared words, more subtle exchanges of glances and gifts. But there will also be tests of patience, of reputation, of whether the spark you feel can survive the long, deliberate pace of medieval life. Here, nothing worth having is hurried. The night closes around you, the moon high above the rooftops. Somewhere in the distance, the faint notes of a lute drift on the air, a reminder that romance here is as much about the waiting as it is about the meeting. You turn toward home, the image of a certain smile fixed firmly in your mind, knowing that tomorrow will bring its own set of chances if you are ready to take them. Morning in the medieval world comes quietly, not with the blare of alarms, but with the slow stirring of life. A cockerel's cry, the rustle of hay in the byre, the first faint scent of bread from the communal oven. You rise dressed in the same few garments you own, and step outside into air that still clings to the chill of night. The village is waking, and with it your mind drifts once again to that unspoken thread tying you to another. You remind yourself that in this time courtship is as much about being seen as it is about speaking. Visibility matters. If you wish someone to notice you, you must move within their daily orbit. That means timing your errands so that you pass by the well when they are likely to be there, or lingering at the market just long enough to exchange a polite word. These moments are never wasted. Each small encounter builds the familiarity shown from which deeper bonds can grow. The well is in its own way the heart of the community. Women draw water there every day, and the conversations that drift across its stone rim carry news gossip and the faint rustle of possibility. If you wish to be noticed, you might offer to help carry a heavy bucket or to mend the strap of a water jug. These gestures say more than idle compliments ever could. In a world where labor is constant, kindness in work is a language of its own. As you pass the blacksmith's forge, you hear the steady rhythm of hammer on iron. Inside sparks leap in the dim light, and the smell of hot metal lingers in the air. The smith's apprentices glance up at your approach, some offering a nod, others barely looking away from their tasks. Here, too, courtship plays its quiet games. The smith's nephew perhaps has been working a little harder these days, hoping his new belt buckle or knife will catch the eye of the brewer's daughter at the next feast. But even in these small gestures, there are rules unspoken yet universally understood. You cannot simply give a gift without it being interpreted as a signal. A pair of gloves might be a practical item in winter, but offered to the right person, they could mean far more. And so every exchange is weighed, every gift catalogued in the silent ledger of village life. Your thoughts wander to the more formal side of things, the wooing customs that stretch far beyond your small corner of the world. In some towns, a man might stand beneath the window of the woman he admires, singing softly in the hope she hears. In others, there are elaborate dances where partners change with each verse, allowing a brief touch of the hand, a quick meeting of eyes. These moments are fleeting, but they can be enough to begin something lasting. Festivals remain the great equalizer. Today, the village buzzes with preparations for one of the smaller feast days, not as grand as midsummer, but still a chance to gather. Bunting is hung tables set in the open square, and the air carries the warm scent of roasting meat. This is when you might find the courage to speak more openly, because the day itself is blessed with permission for joy. You picture yourself stepping into the square as the crowd grows. Children dart between stalls, old women sell small pies, and a fiddler begins a lively tune. The person you've been thinking of stands by the edge of the crowd speaking with a friend. You walk past, not too close, but close enough to catch their eye. And there it is again, that subtle shared recognition. In the medieval mind, public moments like this carry weight. Others will notice the exchange. They may comment later, perhaps with a raised brow or a knowing smile. And while gossip can be dangerous, it can also work in your favor. If the village begins to pair your names in conversation, Your path toward courtship is already being laid, whether you have spoken openly or not. Yet even with this momentum, caution is necessary. Too much too soon can draw the wrong kind of attention. A rival might begin to work against you, whispering doubts about your character. Someone else may decide they too have a claim on the one you admire. In a small community, affections are rarely secret for long, so you continue the dance. At the feast, you make a point to share the table where they sit, offering bread, or filling their cup when it's empty. You listen more than you speak, letting your presence carry its own quiet message. Later, when the music begins, you join the line of dancers moving through the steps until fate or the arrangement of the dance brings you face to face. The touch of a hand, the briefest pressure of fingers, before letting go, speaks volumes in this world. Night falls with the soft glow of lanterns strung across the square. Laughter drifts upward into the dark, and the musicians play their final set. You find yourself at the edge of the crowd once more this time, standing close enough to exchange a word. Perhaps it is something simple, a remark about the music, a question about the next gathering. Nothing more is needed. In the medieval world, the smallest seed can grow into a lifetime. When the feast ends, you walk home through quiet lanes, the moon bright against the black sky. Your steps are slow, not because you are tired, but because you want to linger in this in-between space after the shared moment, before the uncertainty returns. Tomorrow will be another day of waiting, of careful gestures and measured risks. But for now, you let yourself carry the memory like a talisman. The path to love here is rarely straight. It curves around the expectations of families, the judgment of neighbors, the watchful gaze of the church. It weaves through work and worship, festival and famine. But for those willing to move at its pace, it can lead to something strong enough to weather the storms of life, even the ones that never make it into the songs. You think of the troubadours and poets who wander from court to court singing of impossible loves. Their words may seem grand, but you know the truth. Real love is made not of grand gestures, but of the small, persistent ones. The kind you've been offering in quiet ways. The kind you hope are being noticed. As you reach your door, you glance once more toward the heart of the village, now quiet under the stars. Somewhere out there, the person you think of most might be glancing toward your home. In turn, both of you caught in the same silent question. And in this suspended moment, you know you are still part of the dance, still moving toward whatever ending the medieval world has in store for you. The next morning comes with a gray, wet sky. Rain has settled in during the night, pattering softly against the thatched roofs, turning the earth underfoot to a thick, clinging mud. The village seems quieter today. Fewer voices call out in the street. Fewer carts rumble along the lanes. But even in the damp chill, life moves on. And for you, so does the quiet thread of courtship you've been weaving. Rainy days have their own kind of magic here. They keep people closer to home, tucked in by the hearth, or gathering in the few sheltered places the village offers. The tavern becomes more than a place for the drink. It's a warm refuge where the air smells of smoke and spiced ale, and where you can sit close enough to others to catch their conversation without seeming forward. If you are lucky, you might find them there, the one whose presence has been lingering in your thoughts like the echo of a familiar song. Maybe they're sitting with friends, their hood damp from the walk, their cheeks flushed with cold. You exchange a nod across the room, the kind that says more than words could without drawing any more eyes than necessary. Here, even a brief conversation on a wet day is something to hold on to. You might speak of the weather, yes, even here it's an easy start, or of the coming work in the fields once the rain lets up. You keep your tone light, friendly, careful not to tip too far into familiarity too soon. The art is in making each exchange feel natural, while planting the idea that more could follow. For those who live in this world, a rainy day can also offer a chance for shared work. If a roof needs patching, if the animals need tending in the barn, it's not unusual for neighbors to lend a hand. Offering help is both practical and telling. It says you are willing to give your time and labor something more valuable here than any trinket. And in the course of working side by side, holding a ladder, steadying a beam, a few extra words can pass unnoticed by others. In the medieval mind, these acts of service are courtship in their purest form. There is no division between romance and daily survival. A person who shows they will stand beside you in labor is showing they will stand beside you in life. But it isn't only work that draws people together on days like this. Some families invite neighbors in for a shared meal, particularly if the weather keeps them from traveling far. Stepping into someone else's home is a mark of trust. You tread lightly here, minding your manners, making sure your presence is welcome. Yet even the smallest invitation can be a quiet shift in the balance of things. Imagine it sitting at their family's table, the fire casting a golden light across the worn wood. Bread is passed from hand to hand, steam curling up from bowls of stew. You speak politely to their parents, answer their questions about your own family, laugh at the gentle teasing from siblings or cousins. All the while, the one you came to see sits across from you, meeting your eyes now and then, with a look that says they know exactly why you accepted the invitation. Meals in this world are rarely solitary. They are moments of shared life. And in a small village, word travels fast when someone takes a particular seat at a particular table more than once. The rain outside only adds to the sense of intimacy, wrapping the house in a soft curtain of sound, blurring the edges of the world beyond the hearth. As the day stretches on, you begin to notice how courtship in the medieval world is less a single act and more a layering of moments. Each meeting, each shared task, each look across a room becomes part of a tapestry, a pattern others begin to recognize before you even speak it aloud. The pace is slow, but it is steady, and in this time, slow and steady is the only way such things can grow without being stifled by too much attention too soon. Still, you cannot ignore the role of the seasons. Rain now means the fields will be ready for planting soon, and planting means long hours of labor. Courtship in planting season looks different than in the stillness of winter. There will be fewer festivals and fewer lazy afternoons by the well. Instead, there will be chances to work together in the open air, passing tools back and forth, sharing a drink of water beneath the midday sun. Those who can turn shared labor into shared laughter tend to win hearts as surely as those who write poems or sing songs. And there is something about hardship that draws people closer. A sudden storm ruining a day's work, a cart breaking on the road, these become moments to prove yourself. Offer help without hesitation, show resilience in the face of trouble, and you quietly shape the way others see you. Reputation is everything here. A good name carries farther than beauty, and a bad one is almost impossible to shake. You think of the old stories told by the fire on winter nights, where a knight wins a lady's heart through feats of bravery. In the village, bravery looks different. It is carrying a heavy sack for an elderly neighbor stepping in when a cart overturns, standing up for someone in a dispute. These quiet acts are noticed, and though no troubadour will sing of them, they are the currency of respect. By late afternoon, the rain eases, leaving the streets slick and shining. People begin to emerge from their homes, glad for the break in the weather. The tavern empties a little as friends return to their work. You step outside and the world smells fresh, the air cool against your face. You catch sight of them again, this time passing by with a basket. A quick greeting, a few words about the rain, and then they're gone, but the exchange lingers like warmth in your chest. In your own age, such moments might be lost in the noise of countless others. Here they stand alone, bright against the fabric of daily life. A smile returned, a word shared can be remembered for weeks. The medieval world has a way of magnifying small things until they are as significant as grand declarations. As evening draws near, you head home, your boots heavy with mud, but your mind lighter for the day's encounters. You set about your evening tasks, tending the fire, checking the shutters, setting bread to rise for tomorrow. Outside, the sky fades from silver to deep blue, and the first stars prick through the thinning clouds. Somewhere, perhaps not far away, they are doing much the same their own day, touched by the same small, persistent thread. And so the rhythm continues, the quiet weaving of moments into meaning, the slow turning of the medieval wheel toward something that might one day be called love. The sun rises earlier now, its light spilling over the thatched roofs and waking the village before the bell in the church tower has a chance to ring. The air smells faintly of damp earth, and somewhere in the distance a cow lows for milking. You step outside, feeling the day's promise in the cool breeze, and once again your thoughts wander toward them, the one whose presence has been stitched into your days like a quiet thread you cannot quite unpick. Spring in the medieval world is a season of both labor and renewal, and it shapes the way courtship unfolds. With the planting season in full swing, the village hums with activity. Men guide heavy plows through the soil, women tend kitchen gardens, and keep watch over the younger children darting between rows. The work is relentless, but it offers something valuable opportunity. In the long hours outdoors, it's easier to find a reason to pass near one another, to share a moment in the open air, where everyone's business mingles with everyone else's. It is here among the furrows and baskets of seedlings that small alliances are forged. Lending a tool offering to help carry a load, taking a turn at the harder work so another can rest. All these are gestures with weight. They may not be wrapped in poetic language, but here practicality speaks as loudly as romance. The person who helps you weed your rows in the heat of the day is telling you something, that they see you, that they value your effort, that they are willing to share in the labor that sustains life. Still, there are moments when the work slows, when the sun sinks lower, and shadows stretch long across the fields. These are the moments to speak quietly out from the constant motion. You might pause at the well, rinsing your hands, and find them there leaning on the wooden frame. You share a drink of cool water, the conversation brief but unhurried. Perhaps they ask about your planting, perhaps you tease them about being slower than the rest. The exchange is simple, but in its ease it plants seeds of its own. If the church notices such meetings, and the church always notices, it says nothing for now. Public, respectable contact in the midst of work is part of life, and as long as propriety is maintained, no one can object. But everyone will note the pattern, how often your paths cross, how naturally you fall into conversation. In a village where lives are deeply interwoven, nothing stays invisible for long. As the days pass, the festivals begin to shift in tone. The great feasts of winter give way to celebrations of growth and fertility, May Day chief among them. In many places, the day is marked by the raising of a maypole, its ribbons bright against the green fields. Young men and women dance around it in interweaving patterns, the colored strands crossing and twisting until they form a woven whole. For those seeking love, May Day is thick with meaning. The dances are a sanctioned way to spend time together, to let hands meet in the turn of a step, to exchange glances without reproach. You picture yourself there, the air alive with the scent of flowers and crushed grass, the sky a clear, deep blue. They stand across from you, in the circle, their ribbon fluttering in the breeze. As the music begins, you move toward one another in time with the rest, meeting in the center, for the briefest touch before spinning away again. Each pass brings another chance to meet their eyes, to smile, to let the connection spark again and again. For those bold enough, there are old customs tied to May Day, gathering flowers together before dawn, or slipping away to the woods to bring back greenery for the celebration. Such traditions are not entirely free from scandal, and the line between innocent fun and something more is thin. Still, the season itself seems to conspire toward romance, and those who wish to court use it well. Beyond the festivals, there are other quieter customs. In some places, a suitor might send a small gift, not expensive but personal, to mark their growing interest. A hand-carved spoon, a sprig of a plant with a known meaning, a length of ribbon. The gift itself matters less than the thought and effort behind it. In return, the recipient might wear the gift openly, signaling their willingness to continue the courtship. Such public tokens can shift the balance of how others see you, making the connection official in the eyes of the community long before any formal betrothal. Of course, not all courtships proceed smoothly. There are rivals to contend with other suitors whose presence you cannot ignore. Sometimes they are direct competitors for affection. Other times they are favored by a family for reasons of trade land or kinship. In such cases, your actions carry even greater weight. A well-timed kindness, a public show of skill in your work, or a moment of quiet bravery can tilt the scales in your favor. The village remembers these things, and so does the one whose regard you seek. You think of the role of music in all this, how often it accompanies the moments that matter. A song played at the evening gathering, the hum of a melody, while working in the fields, a verse sung under one's breath that others pretend not to hear. Music, like courtship, threads itself through life quietly, but insistently, binding moments together in memory. Evening comes late now, the days stretching longer. After the work is done, people linger outside, talking in small groups, enjoying the soft air. This is another chance, perhaps one of the best, to move easily between conversations, to join them for a few minutes by the gate, to share a laugh at some passing remark. In these unhurried moments, relationships grow in ways no grand gesture could match. And so the pattern continues, work by day, small meetings and shared moments by evening, the slow accumulation of trust and familiarity. You find that each day adds something, a new joke, a shared task, a moment of silence that feels comfortable rather than strained. These are the building blocks of medieval love, the quiet work of binding two lives together before they are ever formally joined. The church bells mark Compline, the final prayer of the day, and the village begins to settle. You head home, your path lit by the faint afterglow of sunset. The air is cool against your face, carrying the smell of fresh-turned earth and the faint sweetness of early blooms. Somewhere behind you, you hear their voice in the distance, part of a cluster of friends heading home. You do not look back, but you know they are there, part of the same winding path that will carry you both into tomorrow. In your own time, courtship can be quick, sometimes measured in days or weeks. Here it is a slow dance with the seasons, each step deliberate, each turn guided by the rhythms of work, worship, and community. And as you close your door for the night, you feel the quiet certainty that the dance is still in motion and that you are moving in step. By the time summer settles fully over the village, the days have grown long and heavy with heat. The air hums with the sound of insects, and the fields sway gently under a haze of sunlight. Work still dominates the hours, but it moves at a different rhythm, now slower in the peak of the day, more lively in the cooler hours of morning and evening. Courtship, too, adjusts to this tempo, finding its moments in the edges of the day when the air is easier to breathe. Summer in the medieval world is not just a season of labor, it is a season of gatherings. Markets swell with produce, festivals draw visitors from neighboring towns, and there are weddings, always weddings where the entire community gathers to witness the joining of two lives. You cannot attend such a celebration without thinking of your own path, of whether you will one day stand in that place, your hand in another's, as vows are spoken. The weddings themselves are lessons in what is valued here. In the noble halls, they are grand affairs, banners flying feasts, laid out in long rows, the clinking of cups and the playing of minstrels. In the villages, they are humbler, but no less full of joy, garlands strung across doorways, tables pushed together in the open air, songs that rise into the night. Watching these moments, you cannot help but imagine how your own would unfold and who would stand beside you. Summer markets are another stage for the slow dance of courtship. With the abundance of the season laid out on stalls, baskets of cherries, fresh herbs, bolts of newly woven cloth, there are endless opportunities for conversation. Perhaps you offer them a taste of something sweet, or help carry a purchase to their family's cart. Such small acts are noticed. They are the kind of moments that, when repeated, become part of the public understanding of your bond. The long evenings are the real gift of summer. After the day's work is done, people linger in the fading light, sitting on doorsteps, talking over low fences, sharing cups of ale under the open sky. Here you might find them leaning against a gate, idly tracing patterns in the dust, with a toe their hair caught in the gold of the setting sun. You walk past, perhaps stopping just long enough to comment on the weather or to ask after their family. There is no rush. The length of the season itself is a kind of invitation. For those willing to be bold, there are nighttime walks. The air cools, the stars appear, and the village settles into quiet. A stroll to the well or the edge of the fields might accidentally overlap with their own errand. In the hush of night, voices drop naturally, and a conversation can slip into more personal territory without feeling forced. The moon casts everything in a gentler light, and in its glow, a shared silence can be as telling as any declaration. Summer also brings its share of community labors, the hay harvest chief among them. Cutting and stacking hay is exhausting work, but it draws the village together in a common task. Young men and women work side by side, laughing in the sun, sharing water, teasing each other over who has managed the bigger bundle. In such moments, the distance between you and the one you admire can shrink to nothing. A shared task, completed well, is its own kind of intimacy here. In the evenings after such work, the village sometimes gathers for music and dancing. It might be nothing more than a fiddler on a stool, a drum keeping the beat, and a few lanterns hung from the eaves. But in this light, with this music, the air is thick with possibility. You might dance once, twice, perhaps even 3 times, each turn of the steps weaving you more firmly into each other's awareness. And yet, for all the ease that summer can bring, it is also a time of watchfulness. The longer days mean more eyes to see you, more voices to speculate. The balance between being noticed and being gossiped about is delicate. A single gesture can tip it one way or the other. Too much attention too quickly, and tongues will wag. Too little, and the thread you've been spinning may fray. Sometimes the simplest way to keep the balance is to work within the rhythm of the village itself. Join in the games at the midsummer fair, but do not cling too closely. Sit beside them at the evening meal during a wedding feast, but spend time speaking to others as well. Let the bond appear to grow as naturally as a vine climbing toward the sun, slow, steady, inevitable. You begin to notice how your interactions have changed over time. Once a smile was a rare and precious thing. Now it comes more freely. Where once your conversations were short and cautious, now they stretch a little longer, touching on thoughts and hopes rather than just the day's work. The trust you've been building is quietly taking root. The church plays its role even in this gentle season. Priests remind their congregations that modesty and virtue must be kept, that the joy of summer should not lead to unguarded behavior. They may speak of the sanctity of marriage, of the seriousness of the vows to be made. And while such words are meant to guide, they also frame the very path you are walking, reminding you that the end of courtship is not simply affection, but a lifelong bond. There are moments when you wonder if they feel the same, if the smiles, the small kindnesses, the easy conversation carry the same weight for them as they do for you. In the quiet after a long day, you turn these moments over in your mind like smooth stones searching for their shape and meaning. This uncertainty is part of the dance, too. One evening near the height of summer, you find yourself walking home as the last of the light fades from the sky. The air is warm, the village quiet. Ahead, you see them walking slowly, their baskets swinging lightly from one hand. You catch up easily, greeting them with a word and a smile. You fall into step together, talking about the day, about the fair coming next week, about nothing and everything. It is such a simple thing, this walk, yet you know you will remember it long after the season changes. When you part at the crossroads, there is no grand farewell, only a nod, a look, and a soft good night. But in this world, such partings hold their own quiet promise. Tomorrow will come, and with it another chance to add to the tapestry you've been weaving. The summer will not last forever. Soon enough, the days will shorten, the air will cool, and the pace of life will shift again. But for now, you walk home under a sky scattered with stars, carrying the warmth of the evening with you, certain that the dance is still unfolding and that you are still in step. The first hints of late summer creep in quietly. The mornings are cooler now, the air touched with a thin mist that clings to the fields before the sun burns it away. The wheat stands tall and golden, whispering in the wind, and the orchards are heavy with fruit. Life in the village begins to tilt toward the harvest, and with it the pace of courtship shifts once again. Harvest is both a blessing and a burden. The work is urgent, the hours long, and every able hand is needed. Families join together in the fields, from dawn until the last light fades, cutting and gathering, stacking sheaves, and carting them home. In this labor, there's little room for idle talk, but there is a kind of closeness that comes from working side by side toward the same goal. For those seeking to court harvest time offers a rare intimacy. You might find yourself assigned to the same row, passing bundles back and forth, sharing a water skin under the high sun. Words are fewer here, but the shared glances, the unspoken rhythm of moving together, can say more than a conversation ever could. The harvest also brings small celebrations. After a day's work, it's not uncommon for neighbors to gather for a shared meal in the open air, a table spread with bread, cheese, ale, and whatever fruits are ready to be picked. In the warm glow of the evening, when the air hums with the chorus of crickets, conversation loosens. You might find yourself seated near them, trading tired but happy smiles, speaking quietly about the day's labor and the weeks ahead. It's during these moments that you begin to notice the subtle ways the bond has deepened. Once your meetings were chance encounters. Now there is a pattern to them. You know without asking that they will be there at the morning gathering in the field, that they will pause at the well at midday, that their steps will match yours on the walk home. It is a rhythm you have both fallen into without needing to name it. For the villagers, the end of the harvest is a time of gratitude. In some places there is a feast, tables laden with the season's bounty, songs sung late into the night. It's a time when people set aside the hard work for a few hours to celebrate survival, to thank God for the food that will see them through the coming winter. In such gatherings, the closeness of the community is at its strongest, and the warmth of companionship is most deeply felt. For the one who courts, this is an ideal moment to be seen. A well-timed compliment, a shared dance, a toast offered in their honor, all these can linger in memory. But just as important is the willingness to work hard during the harvest itself. In the medieval world, strength and reliability speak volumes. A person who falters in the field will be remembered as clearly as one who works until the very last sheaf is stacked. The church, too, marks the season. The blessing of the fields, the prayers for a good yield, these are woven into the life of the village. Attending these services is not optional. It is part of the shared life of the community. And for you, it offers another place to be seen, to stand near them in the crowd, to catch a moment's eye contact as the priest's words roll over the gathered villagers. As the days shorten and the evenings grow cooler, there are more chances for indoor gatherings. Families invite neighbors to sit by the fire, to share stories, to mend tools and clothes together in preparation for winter. In such settings, you can speak more freely than in the open air. The walls soften the sound, and the firelight draws people closer. You might find yourself across the table from them, hands busy with some task, voices low, as you talk about things that go beyond the daily work, hopes, fears, small dreams for the future. It's in these quieter moments that the heart of medieval courtship shows itself. Love here is not built on grand gestures alone, but on the slow accumulation of trust, the knowledge that you can share both labor and leisure, that the conversation will still flow when the work is done. There is a kind of magic to this season. Perhaps it's the knowledge that the year is turning, that the days of warmth are numbered. Perhaps it's the way the light slants differently now, gilding the edges of the world in the late afternoon. Or perhaps it's simply that you have reached a point in this unspoken courtship where the connection feels less like a hope and more like a certainty. Still, nothing is guaranteed. In a world where family interests and village expectations carry so much weight, the path can turn unexpectedly. A marriage arrangement might be proposed for them by another family. A relative might fall ill, shifting priorities and plans. Even the coming winter can change the course of lives, its hardships reshaping the possibilities of the months to come. And so you make the most of each day. You share the work gladly, you speak when the moment allows you. Let your presence be steady and sure. This is how love grows here, not in a rush of passion, but in the patient tending of a bond, until it is strong enough to withstand the demands of life. One evening, as the last of the harvest is being brought in, you find yourself walking home together. The road is quiet, lined with the dark shapes of hedgerows and the rustle of small creatures in the undergrowth. The air smells of cut grain and wood smoke. You talk softly, the conversation meandering from the day's work to a funny story from the past week. The lantern you carry throws a small pool of light ahead of you, and for a time it feels as though the rest of the world has slipped away. When you part at the familiar crossroads, you linger just a moment longer than usual. The words you exchange are simple: a good night, a wish for good weather tomorrow. But in the space between them lies the entire weight of what has been building over these months. You walk the rest of the way home with that feeling warm in your chest, knowing that the harvest may be ending, but the season of your own story is still unfolding. The harvest is finished now. The fields, once alive with the sway of grain, lie bare and quiet under the pale autumn sun. The village exhales a long, collective breath. The urgency of gathering and storing is replaced by the slower work of preparing for winter. Tools are mended, carts repaired, and the barns checked to make sure they will keep out the damp and the cold. This is a season of change, not just in the land, but in the way courtship moves through the days. Without the constant labor of harvest, there is more time for conversation, more moments to linger at the market or to pause on the road without feeling the press of work at your back. And yet the year is turning toward its harder half, and that knowledge brings its own kind of intimacy. In a world where winters can be long and unforgiving, the thought of facing them alone has a certain weight. Autumn brings gatherings indoors. The air smells of wood smoke now, and the evenings come sooner, drawing people toward hearths and candlelight. Families host small suppers, inviting friends and neighbors to share bread, roasted meats, and thick stews. If you are fortunate, you might find yourself included at their table once more, your place among their family, beginning to feel less like a guest's and more like someone expected. These evenings are rich in the language of unspoken things, sitting across from them in the flicker of firelight. Your conversation winds easily between moments of laughter and stretches of quiet. Their voice is softer here, their gaze longer, as if the closeness of the room allows them to lower whatever guard they carry in the open air. And you find yourself wondering, not for the first time, if they too have begun to think of you as more than a passing presence in their days. The church calendar shifts in autumn. Feast days remain, but their tone changes. Michaelmas marks the turning of the season, its blessings given for protection through the winter months. All Saints' Day follows with prayers for those who have gone before and the lighting of candles in their memory. These are quieter, more solemn times, yet they too offer space for courtship. Walking together to the churchyard, standing beside one another during the procession, these are public signs, subtle but seen. The long evenings open the way for crafts and quiet work. Women spin wool by the fire, fingers moving in practiced rhythm. Men carve wood or mend tools, the rasp of the knife or file marking the passage of time. Joining in such work is more than just helpful, it is a sign of comfort, of belonging. You might sit beside them at a small table, both working in companionable silence, sharing the occasional word, without needing to fill the air. Sometimes on these evenings there is music. A fiddle, a small drum, perhaps a voice raised in an old ballad. The songs tell stories of love and loss, of knights and ladies, of promises made and broken. They are both a form of entertainment and a reminder that love in any age is a fragile thing worth treasuring when it is found. You begin to notice how the village's gaze has shifted toward you. Neighbors greet you with knowing smiles, ask casually if you'll be attending the next feast, perhaps with a raised brow that says more than their words. In a place where lives are deeply intertwined, people rarely miss the signs of a growing bond. And though such attention can feel like a weight, it is also a kind of quiet blessing, a sign that the path you walk together is becoming part of the shared story of the community. Yet autumn also has its tests. With more time indoors, rivalries and tensions have room to grow. A careless remark, a lingering glance toward someone else can spark gossip that moves faster than the wind through bare branches. You tread carefully, mindful of how every action will be read. The trust you've built over the summer is sturdy, but it still needs tending. There are also practical considerations. In the medieval world, winter is not a season to take lightly. Families consider what alliances will serve them best in the months ahead. For some, this is the season to formalize a betrothal, ensuring that the following year will bring a wedding. Discussions take place quietly sometimes, without the knowledge of the couple themselves until the decision is nearly made. You are aware of this possibility, and it lends each meeting, each shared moment, a faint undercurrent of urgency. Still, the pace of your own courtship remains unhurried. You meet at the market, exchanging small tokens, perhaps a twist of dried herbs, a small loaf of bread, a length of woolen thread in a color they favor. These are not grand gifts, but here they carry meaning. They speak of thought, of attention, of the weaving together of two daily lives. On clear days, you walk together beyond the edge of the village where the fields meet the woods. The leaves are turning now a blaze of gold and crimson in the afternoon light. You talk of simple things, the coming frost, the stores of food, the work that will fill the winter months. But beneath these words runs another conversation, one that needs no speaking. The ease of your steps together, the unspoken decision to match your pace. These are the real sentences in the language of courtship here. One evening, as the first frost whitens the grass, you find yourself standing outside after complying the church bell's final note, fading into the stillness. They are there, their breath curling in the cold air, their cloak drawn close. You speak for only a few minutes, but in that short span you feel the weight of the season ahead and the promise of the bond you've been building. When you part, the silence between you is as full as any conversation. Winter is coming. The fields are quiet now, the trees nearly bare, and the days growing ever shorter. But as you walk home under a sky dusted with stars, you carry the knowledge that the story you've begun is strong enough to weather the dark months. In the medieval world, that is no small thing. And as the year turns again, you know the dance will go on. Winter arrives quietly at first, as though testing its strength. Frost glitters in the early mornings, silvering the thatch, and turning the ruts in the road to pale, frozen ribbons. Breath hangs in the air with every word, and the smell of wood smoke becomes a constant companion. Before long, the first real snow falls, muffling the village in a stillness that makes every sound carry twice as far. In this season, life turns inward. Fields rest beneath their white cover, and most work moves indoors, mending tools, weaving cloth, preparing food from the stores, so carefully gathered in the autumn. The hours of daylight are short, and by the time the church bells ring for vespers, the windows glow like lanterns, promising warmth inside. Courtship changes here. Gone are the easy meetings in the market square, the casual conversations by the well. Winter calls for intention. To see someone now, you must choose to brave the cold, to walk the frost-hardened paths, to step into the warmth of their family's hall. Every visit carries more meaning. The journey itself is a declaration of interest. Indoor life offers a different kind of closeness. With the village sealed against the cold, gatherings are smaller but longer. Families sit together by the fire, stories filling the spaces between the crackle of the logs. Guests are welcomed with cups of hot ale or spiced wine, their cloaks hung near the hearth to dry. If you are invited into such a circle, it is a sign of trust, perhaps even a quiet acknowledgement that your presence is more than casual. In these winter visits, conversation deepens. The rush of summer and autumn has slowed, leaving space for longer stories, for questions that reach beyond the day's work. You might speak of your childhood, of the winters you remember, of the people you have loved and lost. In the soft glow of the firelight, words feel both more private and more binding. Winter also brings celebrations, each with its own customs. Yuletide is the brightest, a season of feasting, of candles, of evergreen branches, brought indoors to remind everyone that life still stirs beneath the frozen ground. In noble houses, the Yule feast is grand, with music, dancing, and tables groaning under the weight of roasted meats, spiced pastries, and strong drink. In villages, it is simpler, but no less joyful, neighbors bringing what they can to share, children singing carols in exchange for treats, games played by firelight until the small hours. These gatherings are fertile ground for courtship. Standing side by side in the glow of candlelight, singing the same song, sharing the same laughter, these are the memories that root deeply. There may be a game of gift-giving, where names are drawn in secret, and you have the chance to present them with something chosen just for them. Even a humble gift, a pair of knitted mittens, a carved wooden brooch, carries weight here, for it says you have thought of them in the quiet moments between work and sleep. There are also moments of playful tradition. In some places, a sprig of holly or mistletoe might be hung from a doorway, and any who meet beneath it are bound by custom to share a kiss. Whether your village observes this or not, such small rituals are the stuff of whispered hopes. You may find yourself looking up when you step through a door, wondering if chance or someone's careful hand has placed the greenery above you. Snow changes the rhythm of movement in the village. Paths are fewer now, and each one is worn by the same small set of feet. If you meet them on the road in winter, it feels less like chance and more like fate. Perhaps you walk together to the church for a feast day mass, the sound of your boots crunching in unison. Perhaps you offer your arm to steady them on a patch of ice, feeling the warmth of their hand even through gloves. These moments are as fleeting as snowflakes, but just as distinct. The church remains central, especially in winter. Its great feast days, Christmas Epiphany, draw everyone together. The nave filled with the warm scent of pine boughs and beeswax candles. standing beside them during the Mass, your voices joining in the same hymn. You may feel a closeness that no private conversation could equal. Faith here is woven into life, and to share it is to share something deep. Winter nights are long, and they invite reflection. You find yourself thinking not just of the person you are courting, but of the life you might build together. You picture the shared work of spring planting the laughter of summer evenings, the steady companionship of autumn harvest. In a place where every season demands cooperation, love is measured not just by feeling, but by the willingness to share in the turning of the year. And yet even in the quiet of winter, the path is not without obstacles. Families talk in low voices about the year ahead, about the matches that might benefit them most. If another suitor appears, perhaps one with better land, more coin, or a stronger alliance, your place in their heart may be tested. The surest defense is constancy, to be there to show through action as much as through word that you are a partner worth choosing. Winter offers its own chances for such proof. A sudden storm might bury the road to their home and you join the effort to clear it. Their family's roof might sag under the weight of snow and you lend your strength to shore it up. These are the acts remembered when decisions are made, the kind that speak of more than courtship. They speak of future partnership. By midwinter, the days begin to lengthen, though the cold still holds fast. In the evenings, as you leave their home or they leave yours, you look up to see the faintest promise of light still lingering in the west. The year is turning slowly but surely, and with it, your own story moves toward its next chapter. One night after a shared meal and an evening of stories, you find yourself walking home through falling snow. The flakes catch in your hair, melt on your cheeks. The village is silent, except for the soft hiss of the snowfall. In that moment, you feel the strange, powerful certainty that winter will pass, that spring will come, and that when it does, the bond you have built will stand ready to grow. The grip of winter begins to loosen almost imperceptibly at first. The snow still lies deep in shaded places, but in the open patches of earth appear dark, damp, and smelling faintly of life. The air changes too. It no longer cuts quite so sharply against your skin. Some mornings you wake to birdsong, tentative but insistent, as though the small creatures have decided that winter's rule is ending. With the change in the air comes a change in the pace of life. People begin to linger outside longer, pausing in conversation on the street, rather than hurrying from door to door. The roads, packed hard with months of frost, soften into rutted mud. Boots grow heavy with it, but no one seems to mind. The thaw carries its own kind of joy, the promise of green of work in the fields of days that will once again stretch long into evening. Courtship also shifts in this season. After the long months indoors, meetings take on a freshness, as though you are both stepping into the light after being kept apart too long. A trip to the market feels like more than a chore. It is a chance to see them without the layers of cloak and hood that winter required. Faces are more open now, smiles easier to catch. The work of spring begins early. Tools are brought out, sharpened and mended. Seeds are sorted, fields cleared of the debris winter left behind. The smell of turned earth rises rich and grounding. Here, you might offer to help their family with the early plowing or to repair a fence that has sagged under the snow. These tasks are more than just labor. They are declarations in action, promises of the kind of partner you would be. There are also the first small festivals of the year, marking the turning of the season. In some places, Shrovetide brings feasts before the fasting of Lent. Tables are heavy with pancakes, fritters, and breads rich with butter and eggs. Games spill into the streets, mock battles with sticks, races over the thawing ground. These moments of play offer space for laughter and for the kind of casual closeness that winter rarely allows. You imagine yourself joining such games, brushing past them in the tumble of a race, sharing a laugh at a near fall, catching their hand in the scramble. These are fleeting moments, but they plant themselves deeply in memory. In a time when touch is measured and public such contact, even in the chaos of a game, carries meaning. Spring also brings the church's observances back into the open air. Processions wind through the village banners, lifting in the softer breeze voices raised in hymns. Standing beside them in the crowd, you feel the return of shared life in its fullest sense. The seasons turn together here, and with them will do the patterns of love. As the days lengthen, opportunities for meeting multiply. There is the planting itself, which requires many hands. You might be set to work side by side, bending to place seeds in the furrows, straightening now and then to share a few words. The rhythm of the task makes conversation easy moments of work broken by glances and smiles. And then there are the walks. In winter the roads were for necessity. Now they invite lingering. You might walk together after the day's work past hedgerows just beginning to bud along the edge of fields where the first green shoots push through the soil. The air smells of damp earth and new growth, and the light has a different quality, warmer, richer, as though it carries the memory of summer yet to come. In these walks, words matter less than the shared pace, the easy way you match steps without thinking. You might talk of the work ahead of the lambs, born in the fields of the flowers you've seen blooming at the edge of the woods. Each subject, however ordinary, weaves another thread between you. The village notices this as it notices everything. A neighbor might remark on how often you seem to be walking the same way, or on how well you seem to work together in the fields. Their words may be lightly spoken, but you know they are marking the shape of your bond in their own quiet ledger. Spring's warmth also invites music back into the open. In the evenings, someone might bring a lute or fiddle into the square, playing while others gather to listen. You stand together in the small crowd, shoulders almost touching, listening to the music drift into the dusk. Perhaps you even join in a dance, the steps simple but joyful, a reminder that the dark months are truly behind you. And yet the season is not without its challenges. The thaw can bring sickness as damp and cold linger in the bones. Work must be done quickly before the weeds take hold, and there is always the risk of a late frost undoing the first hopeful plantings. These uncertainties shape life here, and so they shape love as well. A good partner is one who meets such challenges without flinching, and spring offers many chances to prove that you are such a person. You begin to see the outlines of the future more clearly. Where once your connection was a series of small, chance-like meetings, it now feels like a pattern, a thread woven tightly enough that it cannot easily be pulled loose. You know when you will see them next, not because it is arranged, but because your lives have begun to move in tandem. One afternoon, as the sun lowers toward the horizon, you find yourselves walking home together from the fields. The air is soft, the light golden, and the sound of the stream nearby is loud with meltwater. You talk of nothing in particular, the conversation easy and warm. When you reach the place where your paths part, there's a pause not awkward, but full of the quiet knowledge that you will meet again soon. Spring is a season of beginnings, but it is also a season of decisions. In the medieval world, courtship cannot drift on forever. Sooner or later it moves toward a betrothal or fades away. You do not yet know which path yours will take, but as you watch them walk away down the soft, muddy road, you feel the balance tipping. The year is turning, and so perhaps is the story you've been living. By now, spring has settled fully into the land. The trees are heavy with new leaves, the fields thick with young crops, and the air hums with insects busily tending their own small kingdoms. The long days bring a steadier warmth, the kind that seeps into the bones and loosens the shoulders. The village moves with purpose, planting as nearly done animals graze in fresh pastures, and talk has begun to turn toward the next great feast days. It is during this season that courtship, if it is to continue, begins to take on a clearer shape. The easy chance meetings of winter and early spring are still there, but now they're joined by something quieter yet stronger expectation. You begin to notice that others speak of you in the same breath, as though your names are naturally paired. The glances you exchange with them carry a new depth, and when you part, there's the quiet certainty of when you'll meet again. Families, too, begin to take notice. In the medieval world, no match is truly private. If the connection is visible to neighbors, it will not be long before parents and older kin begin to weigh its merits. They consider land skill, reputation, and perhaps in quieter moments, whether affection seems to be present. These conversations rarely happen in your hearing, but you can sense their presence in the way certain relatives greet you, in the way they seem more attentive when you visit. For those of higher status, this is often the season when negotiations begin. Quiet talks between households, sometimes over shared meals, sometimes in more formal settings, test whether a betrothal would be acceptable. Among villagers, the process is less rigid but no less significant. A father might invite you to help with a particularly demanding task. A mother might ask you to join in preparing for a feast. These are not casual invitations, they are chances to see how you fit into the rhythm of the family's life. You find yourself spending more time in their company, and not always in the moments of public festivity. There are errands to run together, fetching supplies from the market, helping repair a gate carrying a message to a neighbor. These small, practical tasks reveal as much about your bond as any formal declaration. The way you work together, the easy give and take of conversation, the unspoken understanding in the pauses, these are the foundations of a life built side by side. The church also plays its role here. Marriage is a sacrament, and so any formal step toward it must be blessed by the priest. You attend Mass as always, but now you find yourself standing beside them more often, perhaps walking home together afterward. In the eyes of the village, such constancy speaks loudly. It is not unusual for the priest to make note of such things, storing them away for the day, when the banns the public announcement of a marriage intention might be read. Spring brings more opportunities for shared celebration. Rogation Tide, with its processions through the fields, is one such occasion. The priest leads the villagers in blessing the crops, banners lifting against the bright sky. As you walk together along the lanes, voices raised in prayer, there is a sense of being part of something larger than yourselves, the land, the people, the turning of the year. The May Games return too this time with the fields green and full. Dances around the maypole, contests of skill archery, wrestling races across the meadow. These are moments when strength, grace, and good humor are on full display. To win a prize is a fine thing. To dedicate it, even jokingly, to someone in the crowd is finer still. It's a public gesture that lingers in memory, and one that says, without saying, "I see you above all others." As the weeks pass, the shape of your days changes. You begin to plan, if only in small ways, around the moments you might see them. A task in the far field if you know they will be there. A visit to the market on the day they usually go. A place saved beside them at the evening feast. It is not so much calculation as a quiet bending of your own path toward theirs. Others see it, of course. A neighbor might smile knowingly as you pass. An aunt might remark, half teasing, that the two of you make a good match. Even the younger children in the village, ever sharper than they are given credit for, might giggle when they see you together. In this small world, the approval, or at least the acceptance of the community, matters deeply. There is also the question of the future one that hangs in the air, even if not yet spoken aloud. Marriage here is not simply a joining of two hearts. It is the joining of households, of resources, of obligations. It is a decision that touches not only the couple, but the entire web of their connections. You begin to think about what that would mean: the shared work, the shared seasons, the shared burdens. The image is no longer vague. It begins to take on the shape of reality. One warm afternoon, you find yourselves working side by side in the garden behind their family's home. The sun is high, the smell of herbs heavy in the air. You talk quietly as you work your hands, busy with the same task, and somewhere in the easy rhythm of movement and words, you realize how natural it feels. There is no performance here, no need to impress, only the steady comfort of being in each other's presence. As the day draws to a close, you walk together toward the village square, the air cooling as the sun dips low. The bells from the church ring the hour, their sound carrying over the rooftops. You pause at the crossroads where your paths part, exchanging a look that needs no words. In that moment, you feel it, the shift from possibility to certainty. The season is turning toward summer again, and with it the quiet dance of your courtship is approaching its next step. Soon there may be talk not just of shared moments, but of shared vows. The medieval world moves slowly, but when it moves, it does so with purpose. And in your heart, you know that the purpose is becoming clear. Summer returns warm and unhurried, and with it comes a certain inevitability. The seeds sown in spring, not only in the fields, but in your quiet, steady courtship, are now growing into something that can no longer be mistaken for chance. The village, always alert to patterns, has begun to speak of you together, as though it were fact, not speculation. What began as knowing smiles has turned into gentle questions: when will the banns be read? In the medieval world, a courtship that lasts through the changing of several seasons without fading is often expected to move toward formality. The first step is subtle but clear. The families speak openly. This is not the grand negotiation of noble houses trading land or forging alliances, but it is still a matter of care. Among villagers and townsfolk alike, parents or elder relatives discuss whether the match is sound, not only in affection, but in reputation, skill, and resources. You begin to sense this shift. Invitations to their family's table come more frequently now, sometimes for no special reason. You are asked to join in work that touches the household directly, repairing a fence, helping to ready the storehouse, tending animals. These are quiet tests, moments for their kin, to see if your presence feels like it belongs. And you in turn find yourself imagining not just the moment of marriage, but the years that will follow. The conversations between families are private, but in such a close community, their outcome is quickly felt. If the tone between you and them remains warm and easy, if the invitations continue, it is a silent sign of approval. Soon after, the talk will turn to the banns. The banns are the public declaration of intent to marry. They must be announced aloud in the parish church on 3 consecutive holy days, giving anyone the chance to raise a lawful objection, whether that be a pre-existing betrothal, a close blood relation, or some other binding vow. Even if no one objects, the reading of the banns is a public acknowledgement. The two of you are now openly promised to one another. Before the banns are read, there is often a more personal moment between the couple. It may not be a formal engagement, as you think of it now, but it is a mutual understanding, a spoken agreement shared in a quiet place that you intend to stand together before the church and the village. Perhaps it happens on a walk through the fields in the golden evening light, or at the edge of the woods where you first lingered months ago. The words may be simple, but they carry the weight of all that has come before. Once the banns are announced, your time together changes. You are no longer simply two people sharing moments in the flow of daily life. You are a betrothed couple in the eyes of the community. There is a freedom in this to sit together openly at a feast, to walk side by side without question, to speak in the square without the careful watching of distance and form. Yet there is also a new kind of attention. Every interaction will be noted, every public word weighed. The village will expect you to take part together in its life. At the midsummer fair, you arrive as a pair. You dance together when the music starts, not furtively, but proudly. You may enter a contest, perhaps a game of strength, perhaps a race, and dedicate your effort to them before the crowd. Such gestures now are not only personal, but symbolic signs of unity before the people whose lives are woven into your own. The church will have its say in the preparations. The priest may speak to you both, reminding you of the vows you will take, of the sacredness of the bond you are entering. He will speak of faithfulness, of the duties you will owe one another, of the life you will be called to share in God's sight. For many, this is a solemn moment, one that turns the joy of the betrothal into a deeper sense of responsibility. Among some, there is an exchange of small tokens. At this stage, a ring, a clasp, a carved piece of bone or wood. These are not the elaborate jewels of noble courts, but they carry their own kind of beauty. They are meant to be worn or kept close until the wedding day, a reminder to each of you of the promise now binding you. There may also be gatherings in your honor, though they are modest compared to modern celebrations. Friends and kin may host a supper where songs are sung, toasts offered, and advice, sometimes earnest, sometimes teasing, is given for the life ahead. You will sit beside them at the table, and the evening will be filled with the easy warmth of those who have watched your story from its earliest steps. Through all this, the rhythm of daily life continues. Fields need tending, livestock cared for, markets visited. But even in the midst of ordinary work, there is a difference now. When you pass one another in the lane, you can pause without fear of tongues wagging. When you share a task, there is no longer the need for pretense. What you have been building quietly is now in the open air. Still, betrothal in the medieval world is not to be taken lightly. Breaking it can bring scandal-damaged reputations and in some cases involve legal consequences. This knowledge rests between you, a reminder that you have stepped into a commitment that the community and the church expects you to honor. The weeks between the banns and the wedding are a strange mixture of waiting and preparation. There are garments to be made or mended, food to be prepared, guests to be considered. Some couples see little of each other during this time, busy with their own households. Others find reasons to meet often, walking together in the cooling evenings, speaking of the life they will soon begin. One evening near the height of summer, you walk together beyond the edge of the village. The air is warm, the fields silvered in moonlight, the crickets loud in the grass. You speak of the wedding day, where you will stand, who will be there, what songs might be sung. Beneath the easy talk is a steady undercurrent of anticipation, a sense that the long dance you began so many seasons ago is nearing its final steps before it becomes something new. As you part at the crossroads, you pause longer than you used to, the night quiet around you. There is no rush now, you both know the path ahead. And in that stillness, you feel the truth of it. The courtship has done its work. The promise is made. The next time the seasons turn, you will not be walking home alone. The banns have been read. 3 Sundays in a row, your names have echoed through the nave, the priest's voice ringing beneath the high beams of the church. No objections have been raised. No unexpected vows or hidden kinship has emerged to halt the path you are on. In the eyes of God, the church, and the village, your union is now certain. From this moment, the wedding is no longer a distant idea. It becomes a date on the calendar, a day spoken of in kitchens, in the square, in the fields. The air around you hums with preparation. And though weddings in the medieval world are not the extravagant affairs they will one day become, they are still occasions when life briefly pauses for joy. The work begins in earnest. Clothing must be made ready, not always new, but at least at its finest. For you, that might mean a tunic freshly dyed or embroidered, a belt polished until it gleams. For them, perhaps a gown cleaned and pressed, sleeves newly lined, a ribbon for the hair. Families and friends contribute where they can, lending their skill in sewing, weaving, or repairing. Every stitch is a mark of care, a sign that the whole community shares in the making of this day. Food is another matter. In wealthier homes, special dishes will be prepared: spiced pies, roasted meats, honey cakes. In villages, the fare is simpler but no less treasured: bread baked from the best flour, cheese aged through the winter. Whatever meat can be spared for the feast. Ale is brewed in greater quantities, perhaps even wine brought from a nearby town if the means allow. All of it must be ready to feed not only the couple and their families, but the neighbors, friends, and strangers who will arrive to share in the celebration. The days before the wedding are marked by a subtle shift in how you are seen. No longer merely courting you, and they are a betrothed pair on the threshold of marriage. When you walk together now, there is pride in the glances of those you pass. Pride and a certain satisfaction, as though the whole village has played its part in bringing you to this moment. Children may run ahead of you, shouting your names together. Elders may clasp your hands with warm blessings. There are rituals, too, that unfold in these last days. In some places, the bride is accompanied by friends or female kin to the bathhouse for a ceremonial washing, both a gesture of physical preparation and a symbolic cleansing for the new life to come. The groom may share in his own form of preparation, perhaps with a visit to the barber for a careful trim or a gathering with friends to share ale and advice before the solemnity of the vows. The church remains at the heart of it. The priest may meet with you both to speak more personally about the promises you will make. He will remind you that marriage is not only a union of affection, but a spiritual and moral duty. He may speak of fidelity, of patience, of the virtues of a good household. His words are meant not to dampen your joy, but to anchor it, to remind you that in this time and place, marriage is the bedrock upon which life is built. In the evenings, you find yourself thinking about the first day you noticed them. The market, the feast, the quiet moment by the well, whatever it was, it feels like years ago and yet vividly near. You remember the first time your paths crossed without design, the first time a word between you carried more than its surface meaning. And you think of all the seasons since, each one adding its own small thread until the tapestry was strong enough to hold this day. Sometimes you still meet in the soft light of evening, speaking quietly about what is to come. You talk of the wedding day itself, who will stand beside you, what songs will be sung, whether the weather will favor the feast. But you also speak of the days beyond, of work in the fields together, of evenings by the fire of the home you will make. These conversations are filled not with dreamy speculation, but with the steady practicality of people who know the world they live in. As the day draws nearer, you feel the weight of tradition more keenly. In the medieval mind, marriage is not merely personal. It is the weaving together of families, the continuation of the community's life. Your union will be remembered in the village's stories. Your children, if they come, will grow among those who saw your vows spoken. The knowledge humbles you, even as it strengthens your resolve. On the eve of the wedding, there may be a small gathering. Some couples choose to spend this evening apart, keeping to the quiet of their own households. Others are drawn into the orbit of friends and kin, who insist on one last shared meal before the formality of the church binds you together. Laughter runs freely in such moments, but beneath it, there is a hush, a sense that the morning will bring something irrevocable. That night, sleep comes slowly. You lie awake, hearing the wind in the thatch, the muffled sounds of the village settling into silence. You think of the walk you will take tomorrow, not alone but beside them, through the lanes you have walked 100 times before, now lined with faces turned toward you. You think of the priest's voice, the joining of hands, the blessing. And you think of the moment later in the day when the feast will swell with song, and the air will be thick with the smell of bread and ale, and you will stand together as husband and wife. In the stillness before dawn, the world feels poised, as though even the birds are waiting to sing until the day is ready to begin. Soon the sky will lighten, the church bells will call, and the path you have walked for so long will carry you over its final threshold. But for now, in the quiet of your own thoughts, you know tomorrow the dance of courtship will end and another dance will begin. Morning comes quietly with a pale gold light spilling over the village. The air is crisp, carrying the faint scent of fresh bread from the communal oven and the sharper tang of wood smoke. The church bell tolls earlier than usual, its slow notes rolling over the rooftops like a summons. Today is your wedding day. You rise to the soft murmur of voices in the house, family moving about, neighbors stopping in with last-minute offers of help. Your clothing has been laid out with care, tunic and hose, brushed clean belt gleaming. For them, a gown carefully folded, its sleeves neatly tied, a ribbon or garland ready for the hair. These are not garments of royalty, but they are the finest you own, made finer still by the meaning they carry. The streets are already alive. Villagers pause in their work to watch you pass, offering nods, smiles, blessings. Children dart ahead, weaving between the adults, laughing as they call out your names together. The walk to the church is short, but it feels different today. Every stone and timber, Every familiar doorway seems to stand witness to the moment. The church waits cool and still, its doors wide open. Inside, sunlight spills through narrow windows, catching on the polished wood of the pews. The air smells faintly of beeswax candles and fresh greenery branches of yew and holly placed near the altar as a sign of life and endurance. Guests are gathering now, family, friends, neighbors filling the space with a low murmur. When they arrive, there is a brief moment when the two of you meet each other's eyes across the aisle. It is a look that carries everything, the first spark of meeting, the long months of careful steps, the quiet certainty that brought you here. The ceremony itself is simple, but every gesture is weighted with meaning. You stand together before the priest, hands joined. His voice is steady as he asks if you come willingly, if you will love and honor each other all your days. You speak your vows in turn, the words older than memory, yet made new by your own voices. Rings, if you have them, are exchanged. If not, the clasp of hands alone seals the promise. The priest blesses you both, calling on God to grant you a fruitful and faithful union. There is a murmur of approval from the congregation, a few smiles, even a quiet tear or two. And then, with the final amen, you are no longer betrothed. You are married. The air outside feels brighter, the bells ringing out in a jubilant peal as you step into the sunlight together. Friends and family gather close, offering congratulations, clasping your hands, patting your shoulders. Some bring small gifts, a loaf of bread, a skein of yarn, a carved wooden spoon. These are tokens of goodwill, blessings for the new household you will build. The feast follows as it must. Long tables are set in the open air or in the largest hall available. Platters of roasted meat, baskets of bread, wheels of cheese, and bowls of fresh fruit are laid out. Ale and wine flow more freely than on any other day of the year. The sound of laughter and music spills into the street. There are dances, of course. You and they lead the first, moving together in the measured steps of the village's familiar reels. Others join the line of dancers, weaving and spinning skirts, flaring boots, stamping in time to the beat of drum and fiddle. At some point, friends may tease you into a kiss before the crowd, a light-hearted moment met with cheers. As the day wears on, the mood shifts from formal to merry. Children run in games around the edges of the feast. Old men share stories of their own wedding days, and neighbors call for songs. You find yourself moving from table to table, sharing words with everyone who has come to celebrate. Each conversation is a thread weaving your new life more firmly into the fabric of the community. There is a moment late in the afternoon, perhaps, when the sun is beginning to dip and the light turns warm and honey-soft. You step aside from the noise for just a few breaths, finding them there beside you. The music drifts from the square, mingling with the scent of bread and flowers. You exchange no grand words, only a shared smile that says you both understand. This day is not the end of your story, but the beginning of another. As evening deepens, the feast winds down. Guests begin to leave, some lingering with final blessings, others slipping away quietly. The tables are cleared, the last of the ale casks rolled aside. Lanterns are lit for those who walk home through the dark lanes. And at last, the two of you stand together in the quiet that follows celebration, still dressed in the finery of the day, but carrying in your hearts something far more lasting. The path you walk now is no longer the winding dance of courtship. It is the shared road of marriage, a road that will carry you through seasons of work and rest, of joy and hardship, of changes neither of you can yet imagine. The medieval world will give you both tasks enough to fill every day. It will also give you moments scattered like bright threads through the fabric of life when you will remember the long, patient journey that brought you here. And as you step forward into the night, you do so together, as you will in the mornings and evenings, to come bound not only by vows, but by the steady, enduring love you built season by season, until it was strong enough to last a lifetime. The village is quiet now. The laughter and music of the feast have faded into memory, replaced by the soft hush of night. The moon hangs low over the rooftops, casting silver light over the worn stones of the street. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and the lingering sweetness of spilled ale. Somewhere far off, an owl calls from the edge of the woods, its voice slow and unhurried. You walk together toward your home, your shared home, now the day's images still warm in your mind. The clasp of hands in the church, the voices raised in blessing, the swirl of dancing skirts, the smiles of friends and family. All of it feels both vivid and dreamlike, as though you've stepped from one life into another, without ever feeling the ground shift beneath your feet. Inside, the hearth is banked low, the embers glowing like small, patient stars. You settle into the quiet, the weight of the day easing from your shoulders. There is no rush anymore, only the slow settling of hearts into the knowledge that you are no longer walking alone. The medieval world beyond your door is the same as it was yesterday: fields and flocks, bells and seasons, work and rest. But for you, something has changed in a way that will not change back. You have found your place beside another, and together you will meet whatever the turning year brings. The house creaks softly in the night. Outside, the stars wheel on in their patient ancient dance. You close your eyes, and the world narrows to the sound of your own breath, the warmth beside you, and the slow, steady rhythm of a life beginning.